Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of The Writer's Block, brought to you by True Faith. I'm joined by Daniel, Sam, and Chris tonight. How are you doing, lads? You're all right?
Doing very well, thank you.
Nick, very good.
Yeah, all good.
Nice to see you. We've got a debut in Sam today, so thanks for joining us, Sam. Looking forward to seeing your opinions on a few things.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
No problem. I say no problem. Yeah, it's good to have everyone on. It's good to get together and talk a bit of football and have a bit of a laugh. Wow. That's what we're here for. So one of the first topics we're looking at tonight, we've got three crackers for you tonight, talking about the friends of Steve Bruce. Who do we dislike the most, ultimately? Which is going to be, I don't doubt, a hotly contested topic. Who will come up from the Championship, and who or what are we looking at as the surprise of the season? And we just wanted to mention Leicester's FA Cup win as well. I think we can all agree, with a tinge of jealousy. I think I certainly enjoyed it, and I'm sure the lads did as well. So we'll start talking about the friends of Steve Bruce. It's been an interesting group of people, I think it's safe to say, who supported Big Steve this year. So we just wanted to kind of mention a few people who maybe have rubbed us up the wrong way, shall we say. So Dan, who's joined us, obviously used to hosting duties.
I know.
So he was on the other side of the fence tonight. Big pressure on you tonight, mate. I don't want to pile it on, but people are expecting a lot of you.
Well, I've gone with Chris Sutton and Robbie Savage, the duo on 5 Live, of course. They've certainly got their kick this season out of winding up Newcastle supporters, haven't they? They've had a lot to say. I think, just as I say, I think they get a kick just out of Newcastle supporters ringing into the show, and they're trying to say, "Oh, look, Steve Bruce is terrible. The tactics, the formation, whatever it may be," and they're just like, well, we think he's actually better than Rafa Benitez, and I just don't understand where they have fixations on the sort of maybe the points totals, and yes, Steve Bruce may have matched a points total Rafa had in the past couple of seasons, but there's just so much more to it than that, and then they don't take into consideration the spending that Rafa had and spending that Steve Bruce has had in terms of net spend as well. There's just so much. I could go on and on and on, but honestly, it's just them as a pairing, them two. I don't know what sort of a kick they get out of it, but they get some sort of a kick out of it, and it's really quite odd. And as I say, Steve Bruce must be absolutely loving it, because if it wasn't for them and those who seem to agree with him, who else would want to listen to them? Because as far as I'm concerned, they're not very good pundits.
I think that's a solid assessment. It's very rare that I don't stand up for a Welshman on the writer's block, but I think Robbie Savage might be the exception that proves the rule. I got to be honest with you.
Honestly, he was better on Strictly. Honestly,
credit where he's due. He has got lovely hair, so I do think it is very much swings and roundabouts. Sam, coming to you, mate. Your first comment for writer's block. Is anyone kind of riled you this year?
Oh, plenty of them. I mean, he obviously is a very nice human being, Steve Bruce, because he does have a lot of friends, and I'm sure he would be great to go for a pint with, but it's not what we're judging him on. And you just think, even people like Brendan Rodgers, who is obviously very successful and doing quite well, talks about Steve Bruce doing a great job. But I'm going to hark back. Perhaps it's an old hatred being stoked again, but I'm going to say Sam Allardyce. They're longtime friends. There were comments earlier in the year, I think Allardyce talking about the criticism of Bruce being laughable, and you just think you can see why they kind of pal up together, because actually if that lot all link arms, they can keep themselves in jobs for a bit longer. But it's not that upsetting to see Sam disappear off, hopefully into the sunset, and if they want to go off on an extended holiday together, then they're welcome to it.
Yeah, I'm sure they will enjoy some cricket in the West Indies or something. Somewhere where they can be nice and warm.
I think more Benidorm, 18 to 30 for those two.
I think that's sort of their vibe. That's their isn't it?
Chips
looking at the
gravy.
barmaid and the pints at the bar like that. Yeah, you could just see that, couldn't you?
So go on then, Chris. Who's done it for you this year?
Oh, well, again, just going back to what Sam said about, Bruce being a nice man. I think it's a bit more worrying for me. Bruce is a bit like the Charles Manson of football managers. For some weird reason, people seem to buy into this spell he casts on them, that he's this brilliant guy and he's a great manager. Anybody with a brain cell realizes he's absolutely shite. But everyone seems to buy into this weird concept. So, but there was a vast list of shit houses that I could have put on this list that have riled me no end. But one ex-player of ours and pundit and one show host for some bizarre reason is Jermaine Genius. he's kind of quietly been really pissing me off for a long time. You know, this is the lad who was a skinny little nobody that Bobby Robson plucked from obscurity and made him a Premier League midfielder. You know, and he seems to have forgotten about what Newcastle did to his career every time he talks about us. But the most recent comment that really knocked me was he said, and I've got it down here, he said, Steve Bruce is one of those honest managers. Now, there's a big problem with that, JJ. He lies all of the time, without even knowing he's lying, he lies. So that in itself is horrendous. And he said, you know, I've backed him all season, and some of these journalists are going to have to eat humble pie. I think Mark Corby said it in the last podcast for True Faith. It's 14 wins in 56 games. There's no humble pie being eaten by any journalist that tells the truth like Craig Hope. So Jermaine Genius, straight number one on my hit list, mate.
No, that's a fair one. I always disliked him after his Goldfish Bowl comments in the Bobby Robson era, which always riled me for a starter. For me, it's Simon Jordan. I think I will not mention the name of the radio station, but he is the epitome of that sort of crap. And it really, really riles me. And I can see why they give him a job. They must say, this is the worst thing you could probably say about this group of people. And he's gone cracking. And has just kind of cracked on with it. And you know, the comment last week or fairly recent, I think it was, calling all Newcastle fans cowards, I think is bordering on libelous, to be honest. I think if someone said that about him, he'd probably be within his rights to sue them. He talks nonsense. I find him an abhorrent human being. Like we talked about Sam Allardyce, Steve Bruce, being maybe ultimately a nice man. I think Simon Jordan would be bottom of my list of people I would like to go for a pint with, if I'm perfectly honest with you. I think just a permatanned knobhead is how my friend described him. And I think that's a pretty accurate description of the situation. Is there anyone else we want to add there? Because I feel like we could do this all day. I mean, Sutton, and Savage. I think those two. I feel like I want to say to them, "What do you think we should be like?" And because I think they have this weird view of the world. And you know, fair play to Alex from True Faith when he went on there. He spoke so well to them and kind of retained his calm. When I think I certainly would have had a fairly healthy tantrum there. But is there anyone else?
They'd have cut me off about 3 minutes, and I think that would have been gone. Yeah, Mika Richards is a good one as well. Mika Richards, sorry guys, he was on that call with Alex too.
Yeah,
and
he was.
You know, he's this laughable, jovial kind of a pundit, but he stinks of an ex-player that Bruce used to give, you know, Friday afternoon off so he could bugger off and play golf or something like that. So he thinks, oh, he's a lovely guy, you know, and it just knocks me no end. It really does.
I think Gabriel Bogmanhole goes into the same sort of category as that as well, because he was, and you know, it's that sort of ex-player manager relationship, and which is just a bit weird in my sense that he's just sticking up for a man when Gabriel Bogmanhole's career at that point was pretty much finished anyway. So you know, why he suddenly is sticking up for him so much it's a bit beyond me. But it is just odd, though. I think that Steve Bruce, you know, for a man who's statistically one of the worst Premier League managers ever in terms of games won, has this backing by so many in the media, and then Rafa Benitez is sort of, you know, thought of as, in terms of how he was at Newcastle, is thought of not in the same light at all. In fact, he was often criticised for some of the way he plays football at times in Newcastle, whereas Bruce, oh no, you can't expect too much, blah, 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 blah. But with Rafa, it was, you know, it was fine to criticise. But so that for me is what that annoys me a lot. I don't know.
Do you know where I think that stems from, Daniel? Is his time as a player. They can't seem to separate Steve Bruce, the centre half, to Steve Bruce, the manager. Even Sean Custis, who could have made this list as well, who used to be quite a decent journalist by all accounts, he was picking it up about, oh, this is no mug. He won titles with Manchester United. Yeah, he's not playing centre half next to Lascelles. You know, he's a manager. He's not winning headers in the box. You know, like when he was a player, he was a great centre half. You know, we would have loved him in Newcastle when he was a player, but you know, it's two different people, isn't it?
I think that's the interesting thing. I think there seems to be a huge lack of context when it comes to expectation, because Rafa Benitez is such a successful manager, has done so much, you know, at a point kind of saved us, I think, from ourselves. But because he's won things, you know, people are like, oh, well, regardless of the money spent or anything else, he should be top 8 in the league. And there's the context is not relevant. Whereas Steve Bruce, everyone knows he's, you know, let's say, a jobbing manager, and let's be polite as we can be, and as a consequence, the expectation is so much lower. So if he comes 16th, everyone's like, oh, for Steve Bruce, that's a cracking job. And either way, you've lost the context there, which is such a big part of the conversation and the situation. I think I think the thing I always come back to with these people, it doesn't matter whether it's Custis or anyone on that radio station or whatever, I feel like there's a constant lack of professionalism that is staggering to me. It's like people haven't done their research, people haven't watched the matches, or people haven't talked to the people that matter and involved in the club, and it frustrates me no end. Go on, Sam. You go.
I was just going to say, I get one of the other things I get frustrated. They all go on about his loyalty and how a loyal man he is. Like, has any other football manager crossed the number of divides that he has in his career? Like, he's played on the both sides of about 4 derbies, yet apparently he's really loyal. Like, I'm loyal to certain things that sit in bank accounts somewhere, I'm sure, but there's no fan loyalty there at all. Anyway, that's just me.
No, I agree.
Well said, mate.
I saw it in 2001. He managed 3 different teams in that, 3 different Premier League teams in that season, which says everything you need to know about the man, I suppose. To kind of move on from Steve and his mates, we wanted to kind of look at who would come up and a potential kind of surprise that we've thought about this season. And it didn't have to be Newcastle based. It could have been another team, or it could be a player, or whatever you kind of wanted to be. In terms of who will come up, Daniel, I'll start with you. Who do you think of the 4 is going to come up?
Well, I mean, given last night's results, I'm actually not quite sure. I'm a bit undecided, to be honest. I think I initially thought Brentford. And I think, as you had said in the pre-show notes, Di, Ivan Toney obviously has been on fire this season. Broke the goal-scoring record for the Championship, I think it was. And Brentford finishing third, only a couple of points behind the top 2. So I honestly thought them, but Swansea played well last night as well, and obviously they got the win against Barnsley, and then Bournemouth beat Brentford. So see, obviously the playoffs is a contentious one for me. As much as maybe it brings some excitement towards the end of the season and it's good for TV money, I've always been one who's thought top 3 should go up, because on the merit of a season, as opposed to just the merit of a couple of one-off games. But I still think that Brentford will turn it around and go up. I think if Ivan Toney manages to get his shooting boots back on in the second leg, they'll get through to the final, and in the final, they'll do the job. And I think it'd be great to have a team like Brentford in the Premier League as well. A new team who hasn't been really up in the top division for some time. And of course, they've got a new stadium, which we went to this season, but we'll not mention what happened there because it was really awful. But hopefully, if they do come up, we can right that wrong. But yeah, I'm going to stick with Brentford.
Sam, what do you think, mate?
I've been very lucky to actually go and watch a fair bit of a few of the teams in the Championship this year. And Brentford, I saw them play against Watford back at Christmas, when they're on this amazing run, and they played the best half of football I've seen played at that level. It really looked like it could only be them. But Woodgate has done a really good job at Bournemouth since going in there. He had a couple of shaky results to start with, and then they were on this really good run. They finished the season a bit slowly, but it's easy to say now that they're 1-0 up basically at half time. But I just think Brentford, they lost both their fullbacks to injury and had to change style quite late in the season. So those last 6 or 7 games, they were actually playing a different formation, and they were picking up wins here and there, but were nowhere near as fluent as they had been earlier in the season. So I think, given that Bournemouth have that lead, I think they'll go there and actually beat them and end up beating whoever of Swansea or Barnsley to get through. So Bournemouth for me.
Chris, over to you, mate.
Oh, it's a tight one, isn't it? Really, I'm very much like Daniel. I was looking at the pre-games fixtures and thinking, oh yeah, these guys, and then the results surprised me a bit. Bournemouth have got Premier League experience, obviously, in there, like Sir Wilshere, players like that. So that's definitely going to help them. Woodgate's not a bad manager. I think he had a bit of a rough ride towards the back end of his time at Borough. But there's just something about Swansea for me that I watched Ayew score that goal and Woodman be brilliant in between the sticks. And it's just something about them and their spirit and their manager and the way they play. And I just think, there's always that team that just, the league form goes out the window and they surprise you in the playoffs, and they end up beating the teams better than them. And I'm going to predict a Bournemouth Swansea final, and I think Swansea are going to nick it. I think Swansea are going to come up.
Well, you can see the smile on my face. I'd be very happy with that.
I knew you'd like that one.
To be honest, like Daniel said in the pre-match notes, I felt like Swansea have been a bit inconsistent second half of the season. Like you said, Sam, I've watched a fair bit of Swansea, and because of the Welsh connection, I've watched a bit of Bournemouth as well with Chris Mepham and David Brooks. So I felt the same sort of thing about Bournemouth, that they're capable of great stuff every now and again, and equally capable of making mistakes. So for that reason, I went for Brentford as well. But obviously that was before last night. I watched the Swansea game. I thought they were fantastic. Ayew's goal was superb. I thought Ben Cabango at the back was so strong, and Gay here, like, they were just so big in the air and colossal and physical and fast and so clever with the ball when they needed to be. I thought they were a really compact and effective outfit against the opposition, who, like Barnsley, have been very kind of physical, especially the second half of the season since the new manager came in. So it is tight, but I think I will, for the sake of looking stupid, I think I will stick with Brentford. I think the game will go back to their new ground, and I think they'll nick something there. I think Swansea have got an error in them, and I think Swansea will get to the playoff final, but I think Brentford will probably nick it in the final. Is my bet, but who knows? I've had some luck with predictions so far this season, but I'm sure it'll
I'm glad you are.
I'm sure you're top of the True Faith predicted league. And
he is.
I have had a couple of iffy weeks, so I'm not getting too smug about that.
You got long numbers or anything? Like, just out of interest,
mate. If I would not. But I would not be sat, here talking to you with all the love in the world, mate. I'd be on the beach in the Bahamas somewhere. He
is really. That's a fake background. That he's just got a Zoom background on it to hide the beach.
Exactly. I make it look.
He's with Bruce and Allardyce.
They're at the bar, Sam. They're probably the bar.
Exactly. Custard for tea. We also wanted to look a little bit at any players who if teams don't come up, or they stay in the Championship, if there's anyone that anyone might fancy from the kind of the top crop of Championship teams. I know we talked about it on our True Faith WhatsApp group earlier in the week, and there were a few kind of good suggestions going around. Adam Armstrong was one that was mentioned. I don't know about you, Chris, but I'm not convinced by Adam Armstrong as a Premier League striker.
Yeah, it's a funny one for me. I'm quite a fan of Armstrong. I liked him when he was here, and I just felt that I always just felt I was just waiting for that spark, something that just burst into life, and because he was great for England under 18s and stuff like that. And then he went alone to Coventry, he did really well, and he come back, didn't quite cut it. And I've watched him in the Championship a bit, and I think we were looking at some stats the other day. I think he scored the most hat-tricks for Blackburn since Alan Shearer or something, so he's in good esteemed company at the moment. And I think the most Championship hat-tricks since Ricky Lambert. So, being in the Championship has definitely helped his game. I think the problem that we have with Armstrong is everybody looks at he's little, he's this, he's that, but I think that's very much an institutional problem that we have in this game. We always look for strength and size and power, and I think that Armstrong, is he ready for the Premier League? It's a big gamble. I think the fee is 14 million quid to us, I think, because we have a reduced figure buyback clause or something like that. If we got him, I do think he's improved, but is he better than Wilson? No. He's not going to get in the team ahead of Wilson. Is he better than Almiron or St. Maximum? Probably not. So, yeah, it's a big gamble. I'd love to see him come back and do really well as a Geordie boy, but I just don't know, mate, to be honest with you. Ivan Toney's probably the main guy down there, isn't he, you would go for, I suppose, out of the two.
I feel like Tony would maybe even suit the way we play more. I think for me, with Armstrong, it seems like a lot of money when I don't... Is he going to be enough better than Dwight Gale, let's say, to be value for money? I'm not sure he is. What do you think, Sam? Is there someone else you've got your eye on, or would you take Armstrong?
I would love to see, for the same reasons as Chris, I'd love to see Armstrong back. And if he's ever going to have a go in the Premier League, it's got to be about now. He's at that right age, a few more years' time, and it might be too late for him. Tony, I would love. Tony's going to be way out of our price range. He's going to play in the Premier League regardless of whether Brentford go up or not. He's a complete footballer. I really like him. There's another guy at Brentford, doesn't get the headlines, but Vitaly Janout, young lad, who's kind of a very, very good defensive midfielder. They brought him over from Germany. Another one they just kind of found from the relative obscurity, I suppose, of Bundesliga 2. And he's played a lot more this year the Danish guy, I've completely forgotten his name. They've got so many of them, but he's been injured quite a lot. So Jan Out's played. Really like the look of him. He breaks up play superbly. And Danjuma down at Bournemouth is absolutely flying. I know Chris having said, we look for pace and power. And I'm like, I'm going to say Danjuma's got pace and power. But he has. He's got goals. He played 6 or 7 games, 6 or 7 starts in the Premier League 2 years ago. But he is absolutely flying, particularly this second half of the season. And I've done a couple of press conferences where he's been there, and he just comes across as someone who really gives a shit. Like, he really cares. He came in immediately after they'd lost a game to Barnsley, and he was absolutely gutted. And there was emotion, and there was something about him that you just went, I would want you in my team. So that would be who I'd personally look for.
There's some good suggestions there. Daniel, what about you, mate?
I think it's paramount that we bring Freddie Woodman back. I think that's something we need to be looking at. Obviously, Dubravka is number 1 and should remain number 1 next season. But I think, Darlow, for a couple of seasons, as well as he did at the start of the season when he was in place of Dubravka, there's been rumours that he's been off or will go in the next couple of seasons, transfer windows, whatever that may be. And if he does, then Woodman, who's had a fantastic season for Swansea in the Championship and had a great game last night as well, I think him coming in as our number 2 would be fantastic, and sort of bleed him into Newcastle a little bit more than he already has been. Maybe play him in cup games or other games like that, etc. And then eventually, because Dubravka obviously eventually will become a little bit too old and won't be as good, and then suddenly Woodman is ready, has the experience, and becomes our number 1. And I think it's foolish to let someone like Freddie Woodman, who, let's be honest, because of the name he's made for himself, will probably go for quite a lot of money for what he's done this season in the Championship, and to let someone like that go and then to have to maybe spend money on a new goalkeeper a couple of years down the line would just be silly when you've got one who is still technically part of the club and has gained the experience in the Championship with Swansea. So for me, he's the sort of person that I'd be looking to keep. As I say, he technically already plays for Newcastle, so I think it's paramount that we do keep a hold of him and don't let him go.
I think it's an interesting thing that I think we've mentioned this on a writer's block previously, in that I think he needs one more year. I think that year of development would kind of make a big difference for him if he could play one more year at Swansea, Premier League or Championship. But I take your point. I think there's money to be made in Darlow or Dubravka this year, and I think one of them will go. And if that is the case, then obviously Woodman should come back. For me, to stick to my predictable nature, I've gone for Connor Roberts, which normally he's a Welshman, and I'm obviously fond, but I think he would solve a lot of our problems. And I think you look at our right back situation this year. We've ended the year with Jacob Murphy, and to be fair to him, I think he's finished the season really, really well. He's actually been one of our better players, and looking at the surprise of the season, he was certainly a contender for me in that position, because I've never been a big fan of him. I've always thought he's been completely hit and miss. His final ball hasn't always been great, but this time when he's come in, he's scored goals, he's created goals. But I think he will go at the end of the year. I think his contract is up. And I think that someone like Connor Roberts would really solve that problem for us. We've often said that Murphy's good going forward, but not great going back. Manquillo sometimes can be great, and he's improved as well. Kraft obviously doesn't know which way's up, bless him. So I think we need to kind of find a solution in the right back situation. And I think Connor Roberts could play that attacking wing back role that Bruce wants. And equally, if we do change formation, he's equally comfortable playing as a genuine fullback as well, a genuine right back. So I think he would be someone who wouldn't cost a lot of money. Swansea are a selling club. And I think there's some others that I'd like to mention. Again, I think David Brooks is a fantastic talent. Very good at Bournemouth, and I would love to have him, but I think he is another one who will go for a lot of money. I think Kiefer Moore playing up front for Cardiff, I think would suit the way we play. I would rather have him than Joe Linton. I think he wouldn't cost us millions of pounds either. I think he's someone else who could hold the ball up well, run the channels well, decent finisher. So I think there are options out there for us in the Championship. I think that's where we're most likely to shop this year. But again, it's still going to kind of require a decent outlay of money. I mentioned there, Sam, talking about a surprise of the season. I've kind of butchered mine already, but who do you think is our surprise of the season, be it in Newcastle or just in the Premier League in general?
I was going to say the obvious one is us staying up. Like after that Brighton game, it's just it was done in my mind, and it's like, well, I'm not even looking at the results anymore. It's finished. Is it a surprise? Wolves kind of being found out a little bit. I mean, maybe Nuno isn't the manager, this kind of demigod manager that we all perhaps thought he was. I mean, okay, they've lost Jota and then Raul Jimenez, but actually, they just don't score goals, and it's not me doing the research. I've read other people talking about it, but they just don't get the ball in the box. And from being a side that everyone was expecting, I don't know if they pushed their own narrative to be challenging for the Champions League. Suddenly, they're in no danger, but they're just middly. It's like, well, what have Wolves done this year? They occasionally win a few games. They've had no excitement at either end, so maybe that was a bit of a surprise. I expected them to kick on a bit, but.
No, that's a great point. I hadn't thought of them. What about you, Chris?
Well, from a Newcastle point of view, I'm the same as Sam. I was destined to think we were going down, in a blaze of very, very not a lot of glory when we stayed up. So that was a surprise. In terms of the other surprise in the Premier League, one player really surprised me. I mean, Leeds United in general surprised me with how well they adapted to the Premier League. They're a breath of fresh air. I love watching them play. But Patrick Bamford really surprised me because I thought he was just never a Premier League player as long as I've got a hole in my backside. I watched him, play for Norwich and, Palace and Burnley and all these kind of rank average teams. He did nothing. He's kind of got that kind of middle class schoolboy type vibe that everyone just thinks he's a bit of a twat, but he's probably not. He's probably a really nice guy. But he came in the Premier League and I just thought, nah, he'll have 5 or 6 goals. He'd be crap, he'd be rubbish. And I watched him just, he's banged in. I've got some stats that he's got 36 games, 15 goals, 8 assists. And he's on the cusp of potentially breaking into the Euro squad. And you've got to say he's had a hell of a season. I mean, I think part of it is down to him, no question. But the other part is down to just the amount of chances the Leeds create as a side is just incredible. I think even if you're a half-decent centre-forward, you're going to get 15, 16 goals a season. But he really surprised me massively.
Well, that's a great point. He got accepted to Harvard as well.
Wow.
Yeah, you go on a football scholarship. But there you go. Top fact of the day. Daniel, what about you, mate? Who are you
I'm going to echo you, Di, and say Jacob Murphy, because I think when he went on loan to Sheffield Wednesday after playing for a season at Newcastle, not really making much of an impact, as you said, he spent some time away, and I should imagine the majority of us thought, well, that's his Newcastle career over. He'll go on loan, and eventually the club that he's been on loan at will probably buy him. Because he was doing all right down there in the Championship, but he's come back and he's worked hard, and as you say, since he's had some game time, he's done fantastically well. I think even from a defensive side, I was watching him against Man City the other night, and he did his job probably better than Emil Kraft has been doing from a defensive point of view as well, which is for a player who probably isn't used to at all defending. He's actually done really quite well. But of course, from a going forward point of view, as you say, scored goals, and has assisted as well, and his delivery into the box is brilliant, and he can beat a man as well. He has this ability to just drop his shoulder, in a sort of Sam Maximan-esque style, and just be past him. And his pace is electric too. So for that sort of wing back role, I think he's been absolutely perfect. And credit to him for fighting and for working to get back into the Newcastle team, because of course this is a club that means a lot to him, given that he supported the club growing up as a boy. So fair play to Jacob Murphy. In terms of the Premier League, West Ham are a bit of a surprise. I know they've had a bit of a tail off towards the end of these last couple of games and probably won't make the Champions League, but it sort of reminds me a bit of Newcastle in 11-12 when we finished 5th, and it was unexpected considering we'd come up from the Championship the year before and had done all right in the Premier League. I think we came 12th under Chris Hughton and Alan Pardew, and then suddenly, after a few good signings, obviously we had Kabay, etc., and they've had Thomas Souček, who's been a revelation in the centre of the park. And suddenly they're in the top 6 as we were in the top 5 then. So credit to David Moyes, who of course hasn't had the easiest managerial run since leaving Everton. So fair play to West Ham. That they're my team in terms of surprise of the season. So fair play to West Ham and fair play to Jacob Murphy.
Yeah, I agree with you on both fronts, Daniel. I think West Ham, if you would have asked people to put a bet on where you thought West Ham were going to come this year, I don't think many people would have said top 6, top 5, potentially even top 4. I know it's looking unlikely now, but I've got a mate of mine who's a West Ham fan, and he said that the biggest thing for them has probably been Jesse Lingard in the way that he has
Incredible.
kind of changed the mentality of the club as much as anything else. That he's brought a
Yeah.
winning mentality, which is a big thing. And you've got to look as well. They've been missing Antonio for chunks of the season. I mean, he's so dynamic. He looks like, I just can't imagine how hard it must be to play against him with his movement. He's got a great touch. He's quick. He's, really physical player, tall player, good in the air. He must be a nightmare to play against. So those two have really transformed them, I think, and good for them. And again, I don't think anyone thought David Moyes was going to do too much in that respect either. So I would agree with you there on that. Looking back at the weekend, it was an interesting weekend, and I got to say, I really enjoyed watching Leicester win that. It wasn't a classic cup final by any stretch, but seeing fans in there, I thought the second half was watchable. I thought it reminded you why you enjoy football, and I thought it was worth talking about them as a club, because I think they've done a fantastic job as a club. Sorry, is there anything that we kind of thought, well, fair play to them, about their victory, and thought that we kind of enjoyed about their victory? Chris, I'll start with you, mate.
Yeah, I mean, I loved it. I think it was a victory for all the football fans, especially after the European Super League debacle of a few weeks ago. I don't think any neutral wanted Chelsea to win that cup at all. And, that's no offence to the Chelsea fans. It's just a fact, we kind of felt that way. But I really like Leicester. I think they're a real shining example of how a club can be run in the right way. Kasper Schmeichel spoke brilliantly when, I think in the lead up to the game of the week and the weekend as well, just about how everyone matters. Whether it be the kit man, the tea lady, the striker, whatever it is, the owner, everybody seems to just be on the same page, and you can feel that warmth, and you can feel that desire as a team, as a club, as a city to succeed. I love everything they do. I mean, in particular, the scouting system is incredible. A couple of points there that they got Kante for 5 million, sold him for 32 million. They got Mahrez for 450 grand. When I think St Mirren passed on him and sold him for 60 million quid, and they bought Maddison in for 20. The way they do business is amazing. If we were playing Monopoly, they'd have all the pieces, and Ashley would be just sitting spinning like an empty chip or something like that, because they're just absolutely, the way they run the club from top to toe is incredible, and especially after all the tragedy they've been through, I was really pleased for them to win that cup.
I can see you nodding there, Daniel.
Yeah, no, I just echo all what Chris has said there. They are the sort of model club in terms of how, as you say, Chris, how a football club should be run. And it's from the top down to the bottom, as you say. And I think what really got me was when Kasper Schmeichel, having with the game had finished, and he brought the son of Kunvichai onto the pitch and let him join in the celebrations. And I think just that relationship between sort of players and owners and staff, etc. You wouldn't see Jamal Lascelles bringing down Mike Ashley, would you? And sort of bring him onto the pitch.
Maybe the right hook, hopefully. Bring him down.
Well, to be fair, we wouldn't even get to that situation where we won a cup, to be honest. But if for some sort of reason that we didn't, you just wouldn't see that happening after everything that's happened. And I think just what they're doing, just the little things as well. I think when they won the league a few years back, there was just so many little things that they'd give fans little presents. I think when Jimmy Vardy broke the goal-scoring record, they all give everyone a bag of crisps with Jimmy Vardy's face on it, because obviously Walker's crisps and Leicester. So I think it's just the little things as well that that fans appreciate so much. I think that's just shows that why they are just a model club, where there's such a good relationship between the ownership and the support, which then feeds into the playing staff and the other staff as well. So fair play and credit to Leicester. They deserved it, and obviously a cracking strike from Yuri Tielemans to win the match as well. Unbelievable strike, and obviously great to just see the limbs, as it were, in Wembley as the ball hit the back of the net. Just what a sight! Just a raw. I'm looking forward to it tomorrow when I go back. I even like the booing. I even like the booing when the boo Chilwell. I got excited about that because it was real booing. It wasn't fake booing. It was great. And it wasn't delayed either. It's not, like when a ball goes out for a corner and it's been like maybe a close chance, and then second, ooh. But no, it was fantastic. And as I say, hopefully Newcastle managed to actually score a goal tomorrow night, and I actually get to jump out of my seat. Hopefully.
So Daniel's going tomorrow. Either of you two boys got a ticket?
No, we're not going tomorrow.
Yeah, so it's just you're representing us all, mate.
He's repping the block.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think the thing you talked about there with the bag of crisps was interesting. I can't remember whether it was last season or not, but they also bought everyone a pint in the away end. When you got a ticket for, I think it was a Boxing Day match, they gave you a voucher for a pint in the away end. And little things like that, I think, make such a difference to fans. And yeah, I don't know what you think, Sam, but I think like the lads have said there, they're a really well run club, aren't they?
Yeah, it's difficult to add too much. Is that the link is modern football. So I cover a lot of cricket, and the link between cricketers and their fans is much they're closer because they aren't superstars necessarily in the same way that football, this football stardom, and with the money, it's just pushed that gap between the supporters and the players further and further away. And actually, it doesn't have to be like that. All it takes is for the club and the players to just engage a little bit, and actually, you can do quite small things and make people feel much closer. And, watching them, it's amazing. It makes me feel a little bit sad because you go, well, that is what we could have. Like, here's what you could have had. Whether we'll ever have it in our lifetimes, I don't know. And it's also because it's so doable. While it's a miracle, they've brought in those players that Chris was mentioning, but also it's not like they're spending 50 million on superstars. People like Wes Morgan, Mark Albrighton, Andy King was there for years. Like, they've all been a big part of that as well. So it's not like it's unachievable. They're going out and doing things we couldn't do. They're players with respect to them. They're very good players, but they're not necessarily world beaters. But they're just the perfect example of the sum being much greater than the parts, and the parts are pretty decent. So that's a good formula.
Yeah, I think the sum be a great in the part, I think is a great analogy for them. Just everything about them as a club, I think. And I think Daniel said about the owner being part of the celebrations. I found that really quite emotional because, that was more than football at that point, wasn't it? That was his dad who kind of could have been there, and he raised the trophy up and looked up, and I was like, bloody hell, my wife was just like, "You all right?" And I was just like, "Oh my god, I can't deal. I'm getting old."
Was it the hay fever? Was it the hay fever?
I'm blaming the hay fever. Yeah. See, I wish I had the blackout.
Yeah,
the blackout
I was the
lights
same.
I had now, it was the
same.
Go on.
Sorry, mate. I was just saying I was the same. And then when Schmeichel said they had a picture of his dad was of a child under the shirt and you couldn't see it. Again, as Daniel says, those little touches are just beautiful. Beautiful, they really are.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? That connection and what it meant to him as the owner, and the embraces with the players, and the turnarounds to the fan. You can imagine if God forbid Newcastle win anything, but Mike Ashley comes on the pitch and raises the trophy. I think it'd be, I don't know where people know where to look. Never mind whether they cheer him or not. It would be a bonkers situation. So, which again, it tells you everything you need to know about the situation at Newcastle in a minute. But the reason I think I got so emotional about it is because, like Sam mentioned there, like, will it actually ever happen to us? That's the thing that I think got me, because you look at Leicester, with all due respect, you probably have to say they are a bigger club than us in the modern game in terms of what they've got and what they've achieved. That's the thing that got me. All of a sudden, you're used to Man City or Chelsea or whoever winning it every year, and a club, they've done well, but in 5 years they've done well. They've not kind of thrown money at it, like you say, and that was the thing that hit me and I think got me quite emotional. Was bloody hell, like, I can't. How much longer can we go on like this without some reward at the end of it? And that little modicum of hope feels like it's dwindling. I mean, it seems like a stupid or maybe churlish question, but Sam, what would it mean to you if Newcastle were to win the FA Cup?
I don't think I can put it into words. I know that's cliched. I was thinking about this beforehand, and I was just remembering some of the best days I've had. In the Championship, we went down and went to Derby quite early in the season, and the atmosphere, we won 1-0, and everyone singing Richie's Magic before the game, beating Spurs away 2-1, I think. Perez scored a late goal at White Hart Lane, and then there was another one up at Leicester when we basically effectively sealed safety that game, where we just had about 11 challenges flying in. Like, I just think
that game.
It was amazing, wasn't it? And everyone's like, even Spurs, we lost 5-1 to Spurs, and it was when the Denver Bar song was going on. We're 5-0 down, and everyone's just kind of going nuts in the away end. And you can see the Spurs fans going like, they're getting their videos out, going, what are these idiots doing? But like, I can't imagine how many times that would be magnified if we actually went and won something. I mean, I would love. I hopefully I'll be able to tell you one day in not too many years. I can come back and say, "Oh, this is how it feels, Di."
I would love nothing more to do the writer's block with you that day, mate. I gotta say, Daniel, what about you, mate?
It would be the best day of my life. Plain and simple. I mean, I think as a young supporter, and I've mentioned this like a lot in the group chat before, I've not really known a good Newcastle in my years of support. Now, I know, of course, even in the mid-90s and the early 2000s, we didn't actually win anything, but it was good, and you knew there was the potential there to win something, and it could have happened. Now you don't even feel that anymore, and I just think. But as I said, the potential of the club remains, and I think that's what hurts even more, that the fact that it's not utilised. But yeah, if we were to win an FA Cup or Premier League, it just be the best day. Of all the good things that have happened in my life, I think they just pale into insignificance. As good as they all have been, and I'm sorry to anyone who I might be offending in my life who have done good things to me so far, but this would be better. So I'm sorry to everyone else who's been a good part of my life so far, but this would just cap it, and it would just be as Sam says, I don't think you could sum up just what that feeling would be like, and I think a writer's block on that occasion and like an aftermath would probably be the sort of the epitome of just joy in general. And as I say, it's hard to put into the right words, but it would just be fantastic, and I'm sure the rest of you would probably echo that as well.
I mean, Chris, can you do a better job of summing up using some
Don't
words?
offend your friends, Chris. Don't.
That's okay. Well, I'm a little bit older than Daniel, so I do remember Newcastle being quite good. And I do remember in the 90s where we were the Leicester of the 90s. Everybody loved us. We were that team that played with freedom and flair and excitement. We had the players, Ginola, Beardsley, Ferdinand, Tino, Shearer came. Rob Lee, Philippe Albert, everything we did was amazing. Our manager was charismatic. Everybody loved them. And that was the time I felt, and I feel sorry for young supporters like you, Daniel, as well, and guys younger than you, that they didn't experience that, because just if you could bottle that up, the way that felt in the region, and the whole country. I've got guys I work with who, remember Newcastle back then, and every time we have a few beers, it comes out, oh, God, you had some players back then. Oh, I remember seeing Ginola skin my right back. And I think if we would ever get back to those levels again, I do think the rest of football would fall in love with Newcastle again, because there's something about Newcastle, the region, the people, that there is a lovable likability about us as a region, as a football club. I know the mainstream media like to trip us up and beat us up, but if you had a successful Newcastle that were winning trophies, I think it would resonate across the world of football, and it would be so joyous, as Daniel says. You're not married, Daniel, so it's a good job, because your wife would make you sleep on the sofa about that line there. But thankfully, mine's not an earshot. But but if Newcastle won something, it would mean everything to the whole region. Whether you're a little boy, girl, an old lady, a middle-aged guy, a 20-year-old guy, girl, everybody would just be up in arms, and it would just be so incredible. It really would.
I think it's funny you say that about your wife. I was trying to kind of think about the right words to use, and without banging on about Wales is my thing. But the summer I got married was the summer that Wales got to the semi-final, and as I was kind of talking through my speech with my pals the night before in the pub, like, what are you going to say? And I said, I'm going to have to be very careful about using the happiest day of my life or the best day of my life, because I said that the day that my wife turns up at the aisle, a fantastic day as it was, I knew she was going to turn up. She already knows this. She already heard this. I said the difference is that I knew she was going to turn up. I knew it was going to be a great day. I knew all my friends were there. It was a beautiful sunny day in Wales, as it always is, and I knew what was going to happen. I knew it was going to be great. I knew the band were going to be good. But the day that tournament started, Wales could have lost all 3 games and gone home in disgrace, and it turned out to be an amazing time. And beating Belgium 3-1 was literally, in terms of like what I expected, the happiest day of my life, because it was bonkers and no one expected it. To translate that into Newcastle, I think it's a similar sort of feeling, in the sense of, you don't know what it's going to be. You don't know when it's going to be. You can think you know what it's going to feel like, and then it happens, and it's something totally different, and it's indescribable, and the moments and the memories and the things that happen in that day and the people you share it with and everything that goes with it, it won't be what you think it is. And I think that is the thing that sucks us in every year, that kind of keeps us coming back, is that thing. It's not even hope anymore. I think it's just, there's some kind of sparkle or something. I can't even describe it, but I'm just about old enough. I remember the late 90s. I remember when we were good in the 2000s under Bobby. And again, it was tangible. That thing was tangible. And my last kind of waffle, and I'll finish before anyone else wants to say anything, but I remember I think we lost to Fulham 5-2 once. I think Danny Guthrie scored an early goal.
Yes, but the opposite one as well.
At the opposite end of the way.
Yeah.
It was absolute beauty. And I remember
off the ball.
that day, there was a bit of a hold up trying to get into the away end, and I travelled down from Cardiff and got in, and there were a group of lads, there was whatever the hold up was, were giving out cans to basically whoever wanted one while we waited to get into the ground. So me and my pal, like there's like 24 back, we were just handing out cans to people. So I took my can, and I was just like, oh my God, this is amazing. Just surrounded by people singing songs, chanting. You've got a can off a stranger, gone into the ground, you go 1-0 up, and you just think, oh, this is why we do this. And of course you go home losing 5-2. And I got home and, it's just like, oh, did you have a good day? It's just like, I know it sounds ridiculous, but I did have a great day. And if you imagine that's here, and that's basically because I got a free can and sung some songs, imagine what that is going to feel like. And again, I feel like, it's a bit of a cliche saying these things, talking about supporting Newcastle, but I think a lot of them are true in a sense that a lot of it is more than just the result. It's more than someone lifting the trophy at the end. I think there's more to it than that. So I don't even know if I'm answering my own question anymore, so I will shut up. But I think that thing, that day, I think is not even something we can describe. I think it's something that's going to be very different from anything that any of us could imagine. I hope one day. That's the dream. I've talked for long enough now, so I'll shut up. Has anyone got anything they want to add there?
That got deep, Di.
Sorry, mate. Sorry, mate.
How many bottles have you had, Di?
It's only my first one. I'm not sure I should have any more of these. I'll have to work. I was going to say.
It's true though. I remember one of the biggest smiles I've had watching Newcastle is weirdly after we just beaten Spurs 5-1. We've just been relegated, and I was on the train home. I live in London now, so I was on the train back, and I was trying to live stream the interviews, and Rafa just came on, and his little face, like, there was something about him. He was just kind of grinning because the fans had just been singing "We Want You to Stay," and he knew what was going on, and you could see he felt it too. And weirdly, that's the most excited I've been about Newcastle United Football Club actually going somewhere, perversely, when we've just been relegated. But just that man, his little smile and the way you knew he got it was just special.
That day was unique. I remember it well. I mean, to go down, but then win, hammer a top 3 side, but go down, but then keep a Champions League winning manager. It was just bonkers, wasn't it? But I agree with what you say. There, Sam. It was sort of the start of something that we thought was going to be really special, and it was going that way, and seemed to be going that way until, well, we all know what's happened since. But yeah, the atmosphere in the ground was insane that day, and as I say, we thought it was the start of something special, but not to be. But hopefully, it was just a trailer. Precursor, exactly, to what might happen.
It's interesting what Di was saying there. I think it's the aura of the club and the city when the club is doing well. I watched The Entertainers on Sky the other day. I don't know if you've seen it, but if you haven't, check it out. And right at the end, John Beresford, they were talking obviously about the players. Would you change? Do you have any regrets? And John Beresford said a great line. And John Beresford's brilliant at talking if you've ever been to see him. And he said, you might have all your trophies in your cabinet and all that stuff. So I bet you didn't have as good a time as I did. And I just think that just shows you the infection of the club when it's up and it's bouncing, and the city and everything. That's a guy who's from the southwest or wherever he is, John Beresford. He's not from Walker or anything like that, Wall's End. But he's fell in love with the city, and it's always going to be in his heart forever. And Warren Barton the same, and Rob Lee and guys like that. So I think there is an aura about this city and this club. And you just need somebody to reinvigorate it and have a bit of ambition to get it going again. Let the genie out of the bottle.
Well, I think that is a perfect way to end. I think you've summed things up perfectly there, Chris. So I think we'll call it a night there. Thank you for your time, lads. Daniel, Sam, and Chris. It was great to chat to you, lads. And we'll be back with you very, very soon. Enjoy yourselves. Have a good one. See you soon.
Thanks, guys.
Ta-ra.
Cheerio.
Thanks.